the eternal arena. Prologue. The sky above Vortex 9 was alive, a swirl of impossible hues, lavender bleeding into obsidian, streaks of emerald lightning slashing through the void. Towering spires of black crystal stretched endlessly into the heavens, casting jagged shadows over the barren landscape. It was here, beneath this fractured sky, that the triumvirate held court. In their citadel, perched atop an unnatural peak, the three rulers convened. The Annunaki representative, Shalkor, radiated gold light from his towering, humanoid frame, his glowing eyes betraying neither pity nor malice. Beside him, the reptilian Vaxarin leaned forward, scales glinting in the dim light, his elongated fingers tapping rhythmically against the armrest of his throne. Completing the trio was Elix 6, the tall gray, whose bulbous head and featureless black eyes betrayed nothing of his thoughts. They arrive soon, Vaxarin hissed, his voice like the scrape of bone on stone. Good, Shalkor replied. Let them fight. Let us see who deserves the mercy of survival. Elix 6 spoke telepathically, his thoughts echoing in the chamber. The humans, the Nordics, the others, they will entertain us, but also teach us. Weakness is a mirror, and we must learn from their struggle. Below them, deep within the arena's labyrinthine structures, the captives stirred. Chapter 1. Waking to Darkness. Ava Monroe's first sensation was cold. Not the kind that prickled the skin, but a bone-deep chill that made her entire body ache. She opened her eyes slowly, adjusting to the dim green light illuminating her surroundings. The walls of her cell were smooth, pulsating faintly like the skin of some alien creature. She sat up, groaning. Her military training kicked in immediately. She scanned for exits, assessed potential threats, and tested the strength of her body. Nothing, no escape, no weapons. The cell door dissolved with a low hum. Outside stood a creature she couldn't identify, tall, with skin like molten silver, and glowing eyes that seemed to pierce her very soul. You will follow, it said, its voice echoing unnaturally. Ava hesitated but complied, stepping out into a corridor where other beings were being led from similar cells. Her heart raced as she recognized the diversity, some humanoid, others grotesque. She spotted a Nordic male with pale skin and silver hair, standing nearly 7 feet tall. He glanced at her briefly, his expression unreadable. Another figure caught her eye, a stocky reptilian being who seemed almost familiar. Ava stiffened, her military instincts screaming danger. They were herded into a massive chamber where hundreds gathered. A holographic image of the triumvirate materialized, towering over the crowd. Welcome to the Eternal Arena, Shalkor's voice boomed. You are the finest specimens of your primitive species. Here, you will fight. Here, you will prove your worth, or face extinction. The captives erupted into chaos, voices overlapping in panic and anger. Ava clenched her fists. Chapter 2. The First Trial. The captives were injected with small metallic implants that latched onto the base of their skulls. The pain was brief but sharp, like a blade piercing her brain. A voice, calm and mechanical, echoed in her mind. Neural link established. Language barriers removed. Instructions to follow. The ground beneath them shifted. What was once a solid floor dissolved into an ever-changing labyrinth of obsidian walls. The captives were split into groups and scattered into the maze. Ava found herself with the Nordic male and the reptilian she had noticed earlier. I am Torvax, the Nordic said, his voice deep and commanding. Kassir, the reptilian muttered, his yellow eyes darting nervously. "Ava," she replied tersely. The walls pulsed, and a voice boomed in their minds. "The labyrinth of shadows. Only those who reach the center will survive. Work together or perish." The first trap appeared minutes later. A section of the wall split open, revealing a swarm of metallic arachnids. Their legs clattered against the ground as they swarmed forward. Ava didn't hesitate. She grabbed a jagged piece of crystal from the floor and hurled it at the nearest creature, shattering its body. Torvax unleashed a roar, using his immense strength to crush the remaining attackers. Kasir, meanwhile, slashed with claws Ava hadn't noticed before. "We're not alone," Kasir hissed, pointing to a shadow that flickered across the wall. Ava turned just in time to see another group being consumed by the labyrinth itself. Walls closing in, their screams echoing. "We move," Torvax commanded, his voice brooking no argument. Chapter 3: Alliances and Betrayals. The trio moved cautiously through the shifting labyrinth, each step a calculated risk. The walls seemed alive, pulsating with an eerie luminescence that cast distorted shadows. Ava kept her senses sharp, her eyes darting to every flicker of movement. Torvax walked beside her, his towering frame tense but controlled. Behind them, Kasir's reptilian eyes scanned their surroundings, his clawed hands flexing nervously. They reached an intersection where the path split into three. An inscription glowed on the wall in a language Ava didn't recognize, but the neural implant translated it instantly. "One path leads to salvation, the others to oblivion. Choose wisely." "Typical," Ava muttered. "They want us to make a choice with no information." Torvax stepped forward, examining the paths. "The air is colder on the left," he observed. "Perhaps that indicates a safer route." Kasir hissed softly. "Cold could mean traps. Reptilians prefer warmth. Cold is unpleasant." Ava considered their options. "We need to trust our instincts and each other. Splitting up isn't an option. We survive together or not at all." A distant rumble echoed through the labyrinth, followed by a gut-wrenching scream. The games were claiming more victims. Middle path, Ava decided. It's the least obvious choice. They proceeded down the central corridor, the air growing heavier with each step. Suddenly, the floor gave way beneath them. Ava reacted swiftly, grabbing onto a protrusion in the wall. Torvax managed to brace himself against the collapsing floor with his immense strength. Kasir wasn't as lucky. He slipped, but Torvax caught his arm just in time. "Hold on," Torvax grunted, muscles straining. Below them, a chasm seemed to stretch infinitely, filled with swirling mists that whispered unintelligible words. "Pull me up," Kasir pleaded, fear evident in his voice. Ava reached down to help, their combined effort enough to haul Kasir back to solid ground. "Thank you," Kasir gasped, his scales shimmering with sweat. They rested for a moment, catching their breaths. Ava eyed Kasir thoughtfully. "You hesitated back there at the chasm," she said, almost like you expected it. Kasir avoided her gaze. "I sensed something was off." Torvax narrowed his eyes. Sensed or knew? Before Kasir could answer, the labyrinth shifted again. Walls moved, corridors sealed, and new paths opened. They had to keep moving. As they navigated the maze, they encountered other groups, some in the throes of combat, others succumbing to the labyrinth's traps. The trio chose to avoid confrontation, focusing on survival. They reached a vast chamber filled with strange, bioluminescent flora. The air was thick with spores that glittered like stars. In the center stood a pedestal with 3 symbols: a circle, a triangle, and a square. Ava approached cautiously. "Another puzzle," she said. "Any ideas?" Torvak studied the symbols. These shapes might correspond to certain actions or choices. Kassir stepped forward. "Wait, touching the wrong one could be fatal." Ava glanced at him. "You seem to know a lot about these trials." Kassir's eyes flickered. "I've observed patterns." Torvax folded his arms. "It's time you tell us the truth." Kassir hesitated, then sighed. "Fine. I wasn't captured like you. I'm a reptilian scientist, a defector. I couldn't stand by while my people participated in these atrocities." Ava's jaw tightened. "So you're one of them?" "Not anymore," Kassir insisted. "I can help you navigate the trials, but you have to trust me." Reluctantly, Torvax agreed. "Betray us, and you'll wish the labyrinth had taken you." They pressed the triangle symbol. The pedestal sank into the ground, and a hidden door opened, revealing a passage bathed in warm light. "Looks like you were right," Ava conceded, though skepticism lingered in her eyes. Chapter 4: Revelations. The passage led them into a vast chamber that defied logic. An open sky stretched above, filled with swirling galaxies and shooting stars, yet they were still inside the labyrinth. In the center stood a massive crystalline structure, emitting a soft hum. Kassir approached the structure reverently. "This is the core," he whispered, "the heart of the labyrinth and the control center for the entire arena." Ava eyed him suspiciously. "How do you know that?" Kassir turned to face them. "Because I helped design it." Torvax tensed. "Explain. Now." Kassir sighed. "I was part of the team that engineered the neural implants and the labyrinth's adaptive mechanisms. The triumvirate seeks to create the ultimate species by forcing others to evolve under extreme conditions." Ava felt a surge of anger. "So we're just experiments to you?" "Not anymore," Kassir insisted. "I realized the cruelty of it all and sought to dismantle it from within. That's why I defected. I allowed myself to be captured to get here." Torvax's eyes blazed. "Why should we believe you?" "Because I can help you take control of the arena," Kassir replied. "With the core, we can disable the implants and free the captives." Ava considered his words. "What's your plan?" Kassir approached the core, his fingers hovering over its surface. "The core is linked to our neural implants. If I can access the mainframe, I can overload the system and shut down the arena." "Won't that alert the triumvirate?" Ava asked. "Yes," Kassir admitted, "but it's a risk we have to take." Torvax stepped forward. "If this is a trap, I'll make sure you don't live to see its outcome." Kassir nodded solemnly. "Understood." He began manipulating the core, symbols and codes flashing across its surface. Ava and Torvax stood guard, senses on high alert. Suddenly alarms blared. The chamber shook, and the walls began to close in. "They know," Kassir shouted. "I'm almost there." From the shadows, robotic sentinels emerged, sleek machines with lethal appendages designed for one purpose: elimination. Torvax roared, charging at the nearest sentinel. He grappled with it, using his strength to tear it apart, but more kept coming. Ava retrieved a fallen weapon from a previous victim, a blade made of energy, and engaged the sentinels with calculated precision. "Hurry up, Kassir," she yelled, slicing through another machine. Just a few more seconds. Kassir's hands moved frantically over the core's interface. A sentinel broke through their defenses, lunging at Kassir. Ava intercepted it, but not before it fired a projectile. The missile struck Kassir in the side, and he cried out in pain. "Kassir!" Ava rushed to his side. He grimaced, blood oozing from the wound. "I did it. The system is overloading." The sentinels powered down, collapsing to the ground. The chamber lights flickered, and the hum of the core intensified. Ava supported Kassir as Torvax approached. "We need to get out of here," Torvax urged. "Wait," Kassir gasped. "There's one more thing." He handed Ava a small data crystal. "This contains information about the Triumvirate, their weaknesses, their plans. You need to get this to your people." Ava took the crystal, her eyes meeting Kassir's. "We'll do it together." Kassir shook his head weakly. "No, my wound is fatal. Go, make sure they pay for what they've done." Ava wanted to protest, but the chamber was collapsing. She nodded solemnly. "Thank you." Torvax gently lifted Kassir's body, placing him in a more comfortable position. "Your sacrifice won't be in vain." With no time to spare, Ava and Torvax fled the chamber as the core erupted in a burst of energy. The labyrinth walls crumbled around them, revealing the vast arena and the chaos unfolding as captives regained control. Chapter 5. The Final Game. The arena was in pandemonium. Species from across the galaxy were awakening from their controlled states, confusion and fear turning quickly to anger and aggression. The Triumvirate's holographic forms appeared above the arena, their voices amplified and echoing. "Order must be restored," Vaxorin hissed. "All units, contain the situation." Shalkor raised a hand, his golden aura intensifying. "Let them fight. The final game has begun." Alex 6's telepathic voice resonated. "Only the strongest will prevail. This is a necessary evolution." Ava and Torvax stood amidst the chaos, surveying the unfolding battle. "We need to unite them," Ava said. "If we keep fighting each other, we're playing into their hands." Torvax nodded. "But how? Many are consumed by rage and survival instincts." A group of armored guards descended from above, weapons drawn. Ava and Torvax prepared to defend themselves, but before they could engage, a blast of energy struck the guards from behind. A group of freed captives approached, a mix of species who had banded together. A tall insectoid being stepped forward. "We received Kassir's message through the neural network before it collapsed. We're with you." Ava felt a surge of hope. "Then we have a chance. We need to take down the Triumvirate." Torvax pointed to the central spire towering over the arena. "That's where they'll be." As they rallied more captives, the makeshift army began its assault on the spire. The Triumvirate unleashed their forces, hybrid creatures and advanced war machines designed to obliterate any opposition. The battle was fierce. Ava fought alongside beings she had never imagined. Winged creatures soaring overhead, beings made of energy disintegrating enemy forces, and others wielding powers beyond human comprehension. They reached the base of the spire, but heavy defenses blocked their path. Turrets fired beams of scorching light, and force fields repelled their attacks. "We can't get through," someone shouted. Ava looked around desperately. Then she remembered the data crystal Kassir had given her. "Cover me," she yelled, making her way to a nearby console. She inserted the crystal, and the interface lit up. The data began decrypting, revealing schematics and access codes. Come on, Cassier. Let this work, she whispered. Using the codes, she disabled the force fields and turned the turrets against the spire's defenses. The path is clear, Torvax bellowed. They charged into the spire, fighting their way up through waves of guards. The interior was a labyrinth of its own, sterile corridors bathed in harsh light, filled with traps and automated defenses. One by one, their numbers dwindled, but they pressed on. Finally, they reached the apex, a grand chamber where the triumvirate awaited. Shalkor regarded them with disdain. Futile, he said. You cannot hope to defeat us. Vaxorin snarled. You are ants beneath our feet. LX6's thoughts invaded their minds. Surrender, and we may spare some of you for further study. Ava stepped forward. We're done being your experiments. She activated the final command from Cassier's data crystal. The chamber's systems began to overload, causing the triumvirate's holographic forms to flicker. What have you done? Shalkor demanded. Leveling the playing field, Ava replied. The triumvirate's physical forms emerged from concealed alcoves, towering and imposing. The final confrontation began. Torvax engaged Vaxorin. Their colossal strength matched. The Reptilians' claws clashed against the Nordics' raw power. The other captives fought Shalkor and LX6, using everything at their disposal. Ava focused on reaching the central control unit. Dodging blasts of energy, she maneuvered through the chaos. LX6 sensed her intentions. You cannot stop us, human. Ava gritted her teeth. Watch me. She reached the control unit and initiated a system-wide purge. The arena's power levels spiked, alarms blaring throughout the spire. Self-destruct sequence initiated, an automated voice announced. The triumvirate recoiled. You're willing to destroy everything? Vaxorin roared. If it means ending your reign, yes. Ava shot back. Torvax seized the moment, delivering a crushing blow to Vaxorin, sending him sprawling. Shalkor unleashed a torrent of energy toward Ava, but Torvax intercepted it, taking the full brunt. Torvax, Ava screamed as he fell to his knees. Finish it, he urged, his voice strained. With no time to mourn, Ava completed the sequence. The spire began to collapse, explosions ripping through its structure. Retreat, Shalkor commanded, but it was too late. Ava rushed to Torvax's side. We have to get out of here. He shook his head weakly. My time is over. Go. Ava refused to leave him, but the floor gave way, and she was forced to grab onto a ledge as Torvax slipped away into the abyss below. She climbed to safety as the spire continued to crumble. Reaching an escape pod bay, she and the remaining captives launched themselves away from the disintegrating arena. From space, they watched as Vortex 9 imploded, the Triumvirate's seat of power reduced to cosmic dust. Epilogue: The Twist. Ava stood on the bridge of the commandeered spacecraft, gazing out at the stars. The surviving captives, now free, were setting a course for their respective homeworlds. She held Cassier's data crystal tightly, knowing the information it contained could change everything. What's our next move? Asked the insectoid being, whose name she had learned was Zephyr. We expose the Triumvirate's operations, Ava replied. Warn other worlds, unite against any remnants of their regime. Zephyr clicked thoughtfully. And what of the power vacuum left behind? Ava considered this. We'll have to be vigilant. Just because we've cut off the head doesn't mean the threat is gone. As they approached Earth's coordinates, Ava felt a mix of relief and apprehension. She had been gone who knows how long, and returning with tales of alien arenas and cosmic conspiracies would be met with skepticism at best. The ship's sensors beeped urgently. Approaching Earth, the navigation system announced. But as the planet came into view, Ava's heart sank. Earth's surface was marred by unfamiliar structures, massive spires similar to those on Vortex 9. Strange ships hovered in the atmosphere, and the moon bore visible scars of mining operations. "What happened here?" she whispered, dread creeping into her voice. Zephyr scanned the data. It appears the Triumvirate accelerated their plans elsewhere. Ava clenched her fists. While we were fighting in the arena, they were conquering our worlds. The twist was more harrowing than she could have imagined. Their victory had come at a cost. The diversion of the games had allowed the Triumvirate to execute a larger strategy, but all was not lost. "We have Kassir's data," Zephyr reminded her. "We can still fight back." Ava nodded, resolve hardening her features. "Then that's exactly what we'll do. The battle isn't over." She turned to the crew, a diverse assembly of beings united by fate. "Are you with me?" A chorus of affirmations echoed through the bridge. Ava took the captain's chair, set course for Earth's surface. It's time to take back our home. As the ship descended, Ava prepared for the fight of her life, knowing that the true test of survival had only just begun.